Hey friends, it's your pal Mike Shea from Sly Flourish, here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy GM Prep. In this weekly show, I go through steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Sunday role-playing game. In this case, I am running a Tales of the Valiant campaign known as the Dragon Empire. The Scourge of the Dragon Empire is what it is called. It is set in the world of Midgard, so it is a Kobold Press version of 5e in a Kobold Press world of Midgard. This show, like all of the work of Sly Flourish, is brought to you by the patrons of Sly Flourish. Patrons get access to all kinds of exclusive tools, tips, tricks, guidebooks, source books, and other things to help you, adventures and adventure scenarios to help you run your tabletop role-playing games. To the patrons of Sly Flourish, thank you so much for your outstanding support. So last week we had our first full session, and that session was set in the 440 Fingers, which is a outpost in the world of Midgard in the Dragon Empire region that's in the sort of the southeast of it. Let me bring up a map here. Here's a map of the 440 Fingers. You can see the 440 Fingers right there. It is set, and what's particularly interesting about it is that it is set right at the crossroads. I'm very proud of where I picked this location because it is right at the regional mark. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Loading so slowly. Or did I go past it? That's because there is no map there. Layers, political boundaries. So if you see, these are three different draconic regions, the sort of light yellow, the sort of light or orangish, and the brownish. And you can see where all three of those converge is in this nook right here. And that also happens to be along a ley line. There is a ley line here called the Scholar's Path, it looks like. I think that's the Scholar's Path. Kind of can't tell exactly. Because Scholar's Path might be this white one, but there's this little hook here. I'll have to find out more about that ley line. So it sits actually atop a ley line and at the region of three different dragons. So that makes it sort of both a hotbed, but also isolated from all of them. So our characters began at the 440 Fingers, this one spot right there. You can see like that's the same spot in this map. I'm trying to drag it like it's the other one. Right, so you can sort of see that's pretty close to where the region is, which is a way station. And they found out that there was a curse that existed in the way station. They went down underneath at this way station and found out that there was a group of the ghost walkers, who are these like humanoids that live down beneath and cut off the heads of their victims and conduct terrible rituals to a goddess known as the Pale Mother. And they defeated these guys. One of them got away and escaped through a secret rocky passageway. So there's still a threat that exists down in the 440 Fingers. And they acquired a bunch of treasure. And the most monumental thing that occurred during the game was that they learned about the true tyranny of the Dragon Empire, which is that anything that you find, any treasure that you find, belongs to the dragons and belongs to the Morda, the ruling dragons of this place. All treasure in it, whether it's buried or lost or whatever, belongs to the Morda. If you uncover it, it becomes theirs. And if you bring it to your local representative of the Morda, if you bring it to the local authority of the Dragon Empire, they will give you a 5% finder's fee. So, for example, they found, I think, was it 200 gold or 500 gold? It was a painting that other explorers had kind of found in an old vault and had been then killed, and the ghost walkers kind of threw it off to the side, and because they don't care about paintings. And they opened it up and like, wow, this is a beautiful painting of like a former sultan of the Dragon Empire, like 2 or 3 sultans back. And it was worth like 200 gold. Or I think it was worth 200 gold? I think it was 200 gold. We'll say it was 200 gold. And they're like, great. And then they found out, then they all remembered, I explained to them that they already knew that this was the case, because everybody knows that this is the case, is that, well, that means that you can turn it in for 5 gold pieces. All right, that you get, or 20 gold pieces? No, you get 5%. So 5% of 200 is 5. 10 whole gold pieces. So they could take it in and give it to them and receive 10 whole gold further. And they're like, are you kidding? Like we we had to like fight these headhunters and all this stuff, and we got all this treasure, and we're gonna get 10 gold for it. And they're like, well, this, no way. And they're like, I'll deface it before I give it to them. And they got very upset about this, and the characters got very upset about this, which is totally appropriate. And they went back up, and they're like, yeah, we're not doing that. And they went and talked to their local guy, and they're like, yeah, we want to burn this thing, or we're going to figure out how to steal it. And he's like, shh, like, you don't talk like that out here. Like, you don't just start talking about how you're going to rip off the dragons, right? Like, even here, like, we're far out, but not everybody here is just on their own, living their own lives. There's ears here, and those ears are happy to try to find a way to get higher in station by turning in people like you. But maybe meet me over in the mountain range. And so they went to the mountain range, and that night, like the moon hanging over the mountains, and they found a secret passage that led into the mountains. And they found out that their guy, whose name is, let's go to her. And they fought some wolf spiders. That worked really well. The wolf spiders worked out well because it was a easy way for me to see how powerful they are. And we can talk a little bit about some discoveries about Tales of the Valiant characters. So Master Kiprek is their sort of patron of the 440 Fingers, who's this, robe-wearing kobold, which means he's a member of the Koboldi, which means he's a higher rank than all the non-kobold folk, all the non-scaled folk. But he doesn't really, he just doesn't really believe in that kind of stuff, and he just sort of treats everybody. But he said, like, look, you need to be careful about who you talk about this to. But I am actually, and I was not going to reveal this for a while, but I'm like, well, he's like, they're either going to die or I'm going to have to talk to them about this. Like, they need a way to vent their frustrations, and if I don't tell them, the wrong person could hear and they could all be killed. So he said, I am actually a member of a group known as the Lower Left Hand of Nakrash. We are of the Lower Left Hand, and we believe in Nakrash, the 40-fingered Nakrash, who is this deity, and the most holy activity that you can conduct for this deity is stealing from people, theft. And what better? I have come all the way to the Dragon Empire and made my way here because this is the richest land in the nation, the richest land in the known world. And I plan on stealing every freaking gold piece from this. So, and they're like, whoa, okay. And then what's interesting about it is their motivation wasn't necessarily the motivation of Nakrash. They didn't immediately all join Nakrash because they're like, stealing is not our goal. Improving the people here is the goal. And he's like, well, if the means justifies the ends, then great. Right? Like, no reason we can't work together. And also I can help you with your situation here, but we do not have a way to smuggle material out. So, and then I followed my own advice, which was I explained to the players what this meant from a gameplay perspective. And I said, a fun part of this campaign is not just the acquiring of treasure, but dealing with what to do with it. That too much treasure is a problem. And, it's a rich land and you're likely to get a lot of treasure, but you can't just walk around with bags of gold pieces because the gold pieces always have the stamp of the dragons on them and they know it. And boy, if anybody is able to count every single, they said like, the Morda rule over the Morda are the 9 dragons that rule over this area. And they have dozens and hundreds of accountants and actuaries and things that are keeping track of all of the money that exists everywhere. And they literally know about every gold piece that's being transferred from one place to another. That's probably not directly true, but they know the level of wealth that goes around. And they're able to keep track of it. John Doom says, what about armor and stuff like that? What about, and a question about magic items. And the answer is the magic items too count as treasure, and that their worth is known to the dragons because dragons like magic. They like to hoard magic items as much as anybody else. So yeah, that counts, right? And that means you can't just walk around with your new fancy gear. There has to be like ways to deal with that or ways to kind of manage it or ways to hide it and, or ways to kind of launder it so that it's like, oh no, I am supposed to hold this fancy sword that I found. So it can be tricky, but the showing off too much wealth is going to get the attention of the wrong people. And that to me is like a fun complication of this campaign. I want to make sure it stays fun. Like it's not like tracking arrows and stuff like that. Like, I guess some people enjoy tracking arrows, but I want to make sure that part of it is fun. And of course, as a DM, I have a dial on how much or how little of an effect that this can have. So that to me is a fun bit. So they learned about the 440 Fingers in Nakrash. They learned about the Lower Left Hand of Nakrash, which is the cult that's there to rip things off. Another interesting complication that they probably won't find out right away is that there are actually multiple factions of Nakrash, and sometimes they go against each other. So there could be thieves that are evil, that are like the lower right hand of Nakrash, and that's a problem. So that could be a fun complication and a fun sort of faction to deal with as well. I did put in front of them what they wanted to do next. They had found a treasure map to an old ruin of a previous sultan that had treasures beneath it. And they also found... So I think... I can't remember as Master Kiprick said, oh, yeah, we have two things. Oh, that's right. They found out that the local lord... That Turmalny Morris Gemborn, who is a kobold, who is the regional, he's kind of like the guy keeping, the official in 440 Fingers of the Dragon Empire, but kind of sits in a tent on his own, drinks his wine, and doesn't pay attention to much anybody else. Every so often walks through and expects everybody to bow to him, and then he goes back and ignores it. But not very smart and not very well connected, and probably has a couple of agents that are keeping an eye out, but certainly not a spy master. And he put out a thing saying, hey, there's a hideous creature that's guarding an old ruin of a previous sultan that had treasures down there, and you will receive a flat fee for defeating this monster. I forget what it was, 25 gold pieces each or something like that, and the standard 5% of the treasure received for going after it. And they're like, no, F you, we're not going to go help you. Then they did find that one of the other explorers had a map of a crypt that was up in the mountains, and it looked like that was where they managed to get some of this treasure. But then on their way back, they tried to make their way through the tunnels, and when they made their way through the tunnels, they got killed by headhunters. So they had another one of there's this crypt of a former Ermalny, which is like another higher ranking member that had a treasure hoard hidden in the mountains, and they could go there. And they said that one sounds interesting. But then they heard about the last one, which was Master Kiprick found out there's a trade caravan that's making its way west to build kind of a trade route. And they have money aboard to bribe various groups along the way. And if the characters can intercept this, they can both disrupt this trade caravan and potentially get the money. And that is the one they picked. So that is the one we are going to work on. We are going to work on today. Taking a look at the secrets and clues from our last session. This is the one that occurred last week. The Morza own all the treasure in the Dragon Empire, even hoards not yet discovered from ages past. Even hoards not yet discovered. They learned that very strongly. If you find a hoard, you can meet your local Tamarli, the scaled noble, or Ormanli, the local governors, for a finder's fee, usually 5% of the treasures found. The Morza have minted their own coins and trade bars, which they use to fund their massive war machine. Rumors speak of huge caravans filled with gold and platinum bars used to feed conscripted armies or pay for mercenary companies in the Dragon Empire's everlasting wars. So that is there too. Some crafty explorers still manage to find treasures outside of the eyes of the Dragon Empire, but if the Dragon Empire finds out, they could be nailed to a stake and burned alive. The Morza have countless accountants who manage all the money and treasure of the Empire. Much of this treasure moves through the Empire as tribute from one dragon to another or to fund their countless wars. The Ghostwalkers are a greater threat to the Dragon Empire. So far they've learned all of these things, I think. The Ghostwalkers are a greater threat to the Dragon Empire than they let on. Even speaking of the Ghostwalkers as a single faction is illegal within the Dragon Empire. They learned that. They're like, are you kidding me? We can't even talk about them? I'm like, no, because they don't want people to recognize the threat that the Ghostwalkers have, because they're like this uncontrolled force underneath the nation. The Ghostwalkers have vast labyrinths beneath the library and are largely safe from dragons because of the narrow corridors connecting their chambers. They did learn that. Ghostwalkers worship the white goddess known as the Pale Matriarch. That's the great name, the Pale Matriarch, who is a symbol of a sun-like splatter of blood on a white field, sometimes a white rib cage on a bloody field. The Ghostwalkers are mutant humanoids not tied to any known species, but contain characteristics of many. They range in size from gnomish to ogre and even giant in size. I don't think they learned all of that, but they did learn some of that. Ghostwalkers deal in blood magic. They didn't learn that. Ibalan, the illustrious, currently rules over the 440 Fingers and is Morza to the local governors. Ibalan is the oldest of the Dragon Lords and architected the Pact of the Morharadi and has greed beyond counting. So I don't know if they've learned this last bit. So we're going to keep that. But a lot of these other secrets they picked up. I dumped piles of secrets on them in the last game. So that all worked well. So today we are going to go to our session notes and we are going to create a new session note. I created a new template, the Dragon Empire template that has a list of the characters. Can't remember. Oh yes, we have Tolstoy. Tolstoy is a beastkin rat wizard occultist is our new one. I need to put that in the templates, into my templates folder. I am using Obsidian for my game prep these days. If you want to learn more about Obsidian, please check out my Obsidian article. I have an article, new article on Sly Flourish about using Obsidian. You can find out more there. And in the show notes. Dragon Empire template. So we've got Tolstoy. And what we're going to do is because I'm OCD. I don't know if I'm truly OCD. There we go. Now they're in alphabetical order. Got that. Bang. All right. So we've got my Dragon Empire template ready to go. So, strong start. So what could occur? We could have the local guy whose name already escapes me. He should be in my NPC list. Is Morris Gemborn, and he's a Termalni. He's below the level. So I decided to kind of collapse the levels down. If we go over to the Midgard Worldbook here and we go to the Dragon Empire. Dragon Empire. There are the ranks of the ranks of the dragons in here is something that I wanted to collapse down, and I think I'm going to write them down while we're looking, because did I do them in the last notes as well? We're going to kind of narrow it down to, and we'll put this as a secret and clue. There are 5 general ranks within the Dragon Empire, within the hierarchy of the Dragon Empire. The Morza, the 9 dragons. And then I think we have Ermalni, but let's take a look. Yeah, at the very bottom are the jackals, non-scaled folk. So the Kobaldi, the Sekban, the Egypt, the Anji, and are all kind of going to be called the Sekban. That is they're scaled citizens, and they could be military and other things like that. But that's sort of the larger group of members, and that includes the Sekban. Includes the Kobaldi, Egypt, the Akinji, and the Akinji. So citizens, which could include kobolds, it could include the elemental families, it could include the fighter, the fighter, the warrior. And then we have the Tamarli, and the Tamarli are the lords, right? So we have the Morza, the Tamarli, who are the governors, I think we call them. I think they include the governors. Securing their powers, true dragons, drakes, wyverns, and related scaly folk Tamarli are minor nobles, generals, ambassadors. So they are the noble class. So the Morza, I'm doing these in reverse order, so I'm going to have to fix this. And the Ermanli are the scaled lords. So the Ermanli are the governors. The Morza, the Ermanli, the governors of that rank, right? Like high-level officials. Tamarli are the scaled noble class. The Jambuka are the Sekban are the people, the scaled citizens. And the Jambuka are the non-scaled folk, known as the jackals. So that way I want to collapse the ranks a little bit so like we can actually keep a head on them, because trying to remember the Anji and the Egypt and the Sekban, or Anji, Egypt, and Kobaldi and stuff like that. So a secret could be, so we have our NPC. Let's go back to we'll go to our NPCs, and Morris Gemborn so what is he? He is probably, of those ranks, he's probably a Tamarli, right? He's a scaled noble. Yeah, because the Sekban are like everyone else. So he's a Tamarli. He's considered a scaled noble. He's a minor noble. So I think in today's strong start, Tamarli Morris Gemborn takes a walk and wants to buy a bottle of Drake Park water from Gaudenzia's, except Gaudenzia's player is not there today, so maybe he won't do that. So we'll just have him go for a walk, right? And the idea there is he goes for a walk with his functionaries, and they walk through, and he does his regular inspection of the camp, right? And obviously doesn't have any clue what's going on, and everybody kind of bows and scrapes to him. And I think so Morris Gemborn seeks to become an Ermanli, but his motivation and experience for it is severely lacking. We could have, I think that's, I don't know how much more we need to fill out in that regard. Scene-wise, we're going to have Morris Gemborn walks the camp, walks the well station, planning the heist with Master Kiprek, then traveling down the mountain path. So we're going to take a look at our map here. And when I ran I was thinking like, okay, well, where are they going to go? And my idea is that what is happening? So what's the situation? So the situation is that a trade caravan is making its way south. But I think, if we look at the dragons, where's my Dragon Empire notes? So we have the 3 dragons, right? Which is Adasha, the fiery dragon, Betek, which is Parsis, the golden wind, and Mizar, who is Ibalan, the illustrious. And so the lands, so these are the regions. So I think what could be cool is that agents of Parsis, the golden dragon, the golden wind dragon, are trying to, they don't have a trade route through the other two dragons. And they're trying to establish a trade route that can actually connect them to Nuria Natal to the west, across the Sarklan Desert. So the secret is, and we'll go back to our thing here, that Parsis the Golden Dragon, ruler of Batek, seeks to build a trade route, a hidden trade route between the regions of, and those names were, of Gizmir to the east. Just gonna copy all these and I'll cut them when I need them. And Ibelin. Batek. So Parsis the Golden Dragon, ruler of Batek. Here's the secret is complicated. Parsis the Golden Wind Dragon, ruler of Batek, seeks to build a hidden trade route. And it's not really Parsis themselves. Agents of Parsis the Golden Wind, ruler of Batek, seek to build a hidden trade route between the regions of Gizmir, ruled by Adishah the Fiery Dragon, and Mizar, ruled by Ibelin the Illustrious. They seek to fund a trade, let's see, we'll make this a separate secret. Whoops. Across the Sarklan Desert, all the way to Nuria Natal. The caravan, the secret caravan, holds a chest of treasure to bribe and pay various tribes and scouts to form the trade route between these warring nations. So that's kind of the situation. The trade route, the hidden caravan, the secret caravan is fronted by a silk trader company operating under the pact. What's this whole thing called? The Marodi Pact. Called what? And let's pick like a region. So they're moving out of Batek, called Wilvan Ashadar Trading Company. A company licensed and operating under the Marodi Pact, called the Wilvan Ashadar Trading Company, who trades in silks from Ashadar. Let's take a look at Ashadar. All right, let's get some lore going here. And no, Batek is home to captured flying city of Sikkim, renamed the Cloud City of Ashadar. And he's used as the lair and treasury of the Morza Parsis the Hidden. His golden circle of advisors lives in Ashadar in the ground city of Ukmal. Is there anything else about Ashadar? Dragons fly into and out of Ashadar on a daily basis. The city is much too valuable to risk as a military tool, but does give Parsis a certain level of semi-divine authority. So it's a floating city. The captured flying city of Sikkim, renamed the Cloud City of Ashadar. So what kind of trade? Probably in artifacts, right? I think there's probably a handful of magical artifacts. But what would the Morza allow? So would the pact allow so we have a legitimate trade route that exists from a company, right? They're not a part of the Dragon Empire. They're a separate company. And they can probably, what are they allowed to deal with? And they are probably allowed, well, it's possible. So like, what would they normally be allowed to deal with? We could call it cloud silks, trading cloud silks from Ashadar, which are like super wispy thin, super lightweight cloth, very good for staying cool. And yeah, a high one, and it's woven by wizards at this floating city from the clouds into cloud silks. Very bright and vibrant, very long lasting and strong. So that's what they're allowed to trade in. But are they? And then they're secretly trying to set up a path to pass along magical artifacts, which is outlawed by the Marodi. So, and this is being done by Parsis the Golden Wind, right? Illegal trade route between and Nuria Natal, with plans to transfer money for magical artifacts and back and forth. So I've got a lot of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got a lot of secrets going on. I think we want a faction So the whole plot is that, who are they bribing? So the Wilvan Ashadar Trading Company is bribing a desert smuggling ring known as what are they known as? The Children of Sarklon, or Sarklon's, the desert. Let's see, what are we going to call it? The desert out of a ruin known as Aram in the Sarklon Desert. Let's look up Aram. We'll go back to our Midgard Worldbook. Let's see. Long ago, desert swallowed the remains of the foolish Maradi Empire. Occasionally, hungry shades emerged from the sands near the ruins of Aram, the city of pillars. Undead spirits of the hapless soldiers of the Dragon Empire, doomed to follow the general's last commands until a new master learns how to control them. The shades remember past visitors and previous encounters, but they cannot leave the Field of Bones. That's kind of cool, the Fields of the Lost Army, but that's far, yeah, near the ruins of Aram. So we'll just name it the City of Pillars in the Sarklon Desert. The caravan travels between Gizmiri and Mazar. So would they travel past, if they've gone from Ashadar, so they're going to travel through the way station, right? Through the through 440 Fingers on its way to the Gadigia Hills. It's expected that they will meet the desert winds outside of the ruins of Kukutarma. Let's find out about Kukutarma. I had read a little bit about this before. Ruins of Kukutarma, haunted by wraiths and great thirsters. This former city of Kondarlia has been extensively looted. Its undercity is ruled by mummies, undead gnolls, and blood-sucking werebats. That sounds fun. We're just going to say it's a haunted city extensively looted. But the answer could be actually it hasn't been extensively looted. So that's good. The best place to take the caravan outside of the eyes of the Dragon Empire, but before they reach the desert, is outside of Kukutarma at a valley known as the Valley of Blood, because of how often trade caravans go missing there. All right, so we got that. Bands of gnoll hunters operate out of the region, along with even less civilized monsters, making that area ideal for a trade caravan to get lost. WATC hired, that's the WATC is Wolford Ashadar Trading Company, hired mercenaries for protection, known as what? The Silver Steel, the Silver Hands. That works. So he hired mercenaries for protection known as the Silver Hands. They have seven mercenaries guarding the caravan. Enough to protect themselves from the desert's threats, but not so much to call attention to itself among the rival dragons. That is a giant pile of secrets. That's a lot of secrets. I think we need to move on from secrets. So let's talk about the characters. We never really talked about the characters. And, I always talk about how important it is, and then I don't do it. Well, let's take a look at the characters here, because I think it's going to matter. Whoops. So we have Gaudenzia. Gaudenzia's player is not going to be there today. We have Cal. Cal is an elf druid cottage homesteader. Mother is Orthania Darkbloom, who runs the apothecary. Cal lost their vineyard to the Dragon Empire after it turned out that they were making a fine wine. And the Dragon Empire liked it so much they conscripted the entire vineyard for the dragons and their dragon folk. And doing so caused a great strife, so Cal got divorced from her wife as a result of the situation. And now is kind of a free runner. And it turns out it was Gaudenzia who had used the wine and given it to the Dragon Empire. So there's bitterness between the two of them because it was Gaudenzia that got the Dragon Empire to recognize the value of the vineyard and thus lost the vineyard. Amavin is an elf rogue cosmopolitan criminal, raised as an orphan to be a spy for the Dragon Empire, but fled after some kind of event and is under the wing of Master Kiprick. Rowan Kirkin is a dwarven fighter, salvager, rustic, nephew of Cleon Forgekin and the local forge, and was sent here to avoid being sent to war and slaughter. Matteo Castillo Grigo is a mechanist Sidrian appointed partisan from the Seven Cities area from the north who works alongside Master Kiprick. And then we have Tolstoy, who is a beastkin rat wizard outcast who hates the Dragon Empire's stranglehold on the people. So those are the characters that we've got today. And we have our strong start, which is Morris Gemborn is going to take a walk. We have the scenes. Traveling down the mountain path. So we want to have probably 3 encounters along the mountain path, things that areas that they would reach, right? So I think like the first path is the Eastern Mountain Range, south of 40 Fingers. And a monument there could be, so one thing I was looking at is in the Game Master's Guide, there are a bunch of, at the end, I just discovered this. I was looking in here, and there's like random campaign dressing stuff in here. I want to try to use the actual books for the system that I'm running. And they have a whole bunch of different things, geography, settlements, features, and stuff like that. But there was one in particular that I really dug. Here's stuff that occurs inside of an encounter. Environmental encounter. Strange, wondrous, disturbing things happen all the time when the adventurers go questing. So we're going to grab my dice and roll some dice. This is a D100. We're just going to see what we get here. 92 is large fungi with floating balloon-like pods anchored by a thick vine. That sounds cool, right? I kind of like that. These weird, like what are like floating cacti, right? That sounds cool. Then the next path, well, we're going to come back to that, but I'm going to get the path straight. Then the next path is sort of the Badlands, on the northern Badlands. Right? Arid land, no real, not a lot of foliage, no real place to get water and stuff like that. So you got to bring a lot of your own journey with you. And is there a particular thing they find along that way? 82, I rolled. We'll just see what we get. A bright blue glacier lake surrounded by snowdrops. That doesn't sound right. Let's try again. A 98, 20-foot hole full of dozens and dozens of boots. Upon inspection, they're all left boots. So there could be like a sinkhole. We're going to take inspiration from that. And have a sinkhole filled with the remains of a former army. I like that. And then we have the Southern Badlands. Let's roll another one here and see what we get. 47. Oasis full of lush tropical plants, elegant marble sculptures, and no signs of life whatsoever. I like that very much. Because something here, it is false. It is folly. And so now we can have a potential encounter in each of these areas. And again, the Game Master's Guide has us covered with a series of encounters. So let's take a look here. We have random encounter tables. And sometimes you have to roll a couple of times. So it's a briefer set of random encounter tables than some books have. But let's do, so Badlands, let's roll a D12 and see what we get. Oh, so we're going to do mountains first, right? Mountains or hills. So let's do mountains and hills first. We have desert as well. So the nice thing is we have sort of like overlapping ones, so we can roll on a few if we don't like what we're seeing from them. So like we'll start with hills. 5 is Hobgoblin Commander and 3 Hobgoblins descend on the PC screaming battle cries. So attack of Hobgoblin attack. So let's see. This is the large fungi. So would these be like Hobgoblin Brigands? Because they are outside of the Empire, right? These are not Hobgoblins in service of the Empire. Maybe former soldiers are hostile and desperate. I don't know how to spell desperate. There we go. That one's cool. So then we have the Badlands. Let's go to some Badlands here. And we can do Badlands or desert, right? Like either of those can kind of work. And we're going to do the tier 1 encounters. 12. Horrifically mutated owlbear trundles up to the PCs and speaks to them with a voice belonging to an NPC with whom they have recently interacted. The creature starts out amiably complaining about being lost, but it shrieks and flies into a rage if anyone mentions its current condition. I don't know about that, but I do like the idea of a mutated owlbear. Oh, you know what? I think the mutated owlbear would be perfect for the Oasis, right? And we're going to steal this right out of Annihilation, the movie Annihilation. Cries sound like the cries of people in the last stages of their terror. Stress checks. When they hear it and they discover it, I think they're going to have to roll stress checks. Is there a stress mechanic in Tales of the Valiant? I don't see a thing. I'm just trying to see if there's any rule for... Didn't they have... I thought there was an effect that some monsters had, and they said that the monster, they had to end up putting it in this book because they couldn't fit it in the monster book. And I thought it was like a madness or stress effect. I doubt they're using the word madness. Yeah, good for them. This all looks very familiar. Well, we'll see. I don't have time to find it right now. But I thought there was some kind of mental effect. Everything's elemental. Can't find it. All right. Whatever. So I got the Cursed Owlbear. That's really cool. And if not, I'm just going to use the stress effects from Lazy DM's, the Lazy DM's Companion. And we have the sinkhole filled with the remains of a former army. Dread. That's what it's called. 155 to 157. Thank you. We found it. Thank you for finding it. Walt APR. You get a free bingo square today. 155. Dread. When a PC witnesses terrors beyond mortal comprehension, they might be afflicted with dread. Dread goes beyond standard fear, blasts the mind, and can scar a creature indefinitely, requiring magical intervention to cure. Heroic characters aren't physically harmed by horrors they face, but sometimes the stress can weigh heavy. Occurring dread, magical effects, disease, supernatural things, blah, 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 blah. Short-term dread and long-term dread and indefinite dread. Cool. Wisdom or charisma doesn't, but specific effects can detail how to avoid or overcome dread. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we're going to have a dread. We're going to use dread. That sounds fun. Dread checks. Teen. That's the mutated owlbear whose cries sound like the cries of those it ate previously. So the Northern Badlands, let's do another encounter. Random encounter tables. The Badlands. And we're going to roll a die and see what we get. And we get 11. A ramshackle hut stands in the middle of a dried out riverbed. If the PCs search the hut, they discover it's been abandoned, and they find doll-sized effigies crafted from mud and reeds and decorated to match the PC's current likeness. That's kind of creepy, but I don't know who would be bothering with the characters at this point. We could have... Well, so we have a sinkhole. I don't know. I'm going to try rolling again and see what I get. I got rolled 11 again. They really want me to do that one. Goblin riding a warg charges when noticed the PC's goblin gleefully fights to a death while the warg scampers away after the rider dies. The goblin shouts draw the attention of its companion, also riding a warg, who appears in 2d4 rounds. We could have... So we're going to have hobgoblins already. I think we're going to do like the good old skeletons. I know it's boring, but like, you know, skeletons of armies past rise up. I think that's pretty straightforward. So we got three scenes along the way that they could do, and then they reach the Canyon of Blood, where the heist takes place, and they have to decide how they're going to deal with the heist and what they're going to do. So there's a lot of variables in this. Wow, look at how many things I haven't done in the hour of prep that we've done so far. That's bad. So monsters, we have owlbear. We have hobgoblins, we have a veteran, we have guards, we have a giant lizard, which is pulling the caravan. And what were the other? Oh, skeletons. That's fine. So treasure, I'm going to use my normal treasure generator here, which, +1 infernal unholy ringmail armor. That sounds scary. Why not? So that will be in the treasure. I will probably put some trade bars. So instead of 393 gold, we'll have 193 gold and 20 GP trade bars marked by Parsis, right? That's kind of interesting. An nightmarish elemental vial containing a conjure minor elementals. That's cool. And the infernal unholy ringmail armor. We can do just infernal ringmail armor, which has like devilish forms on it. Does it have an ability? It would be pretty cool. What would be a good, probably like a first-ish level spell? Let's look at warlocks and look at what spell, do they have the spell list? Because I don't think we have any warlocks. So if I give a warlock feature, it's not going to eat up someone else's existing class abilities. I guess this would be weird spells. So Dancing Lights, Grave Touch, Guidance, Mage Hand, Message, Minor Illusion, Thaumaturgy, Vicious Mockery. Nah. Bane, Charm, Command, Detect Evil, Disguise Self, Fairy Fire, Guiding Bolt, Hellish Rebuke. I think Hellish Rebuke would be fun. because it's a reaction, right? One reaction when damaged by a creature, you point your finger and the creature takes damage. The creature must make a dex saving throw. We'll do a DC 13 on that. It takes 2d10 fire and a failed save, and it's a one time per day. That's cool and fits the hellish motif. So that's Hellish Rebuke. So that's pretty cool. Notable. So I got my fantastic locations. I kind of already have those up here. So I'm going to dump my fantastic locations section. Notable NPCs. We have Master Kiprek. We have, so who's the head of the trade caravan? We're going to come up with an NPC for this. Braden Goblin Chaser, a pious orc. Bradic. We're going to name it just slightly. Goblin Chaser. And he's an orc noble of the trade caravan. And then we have a captain of the guards, Esmond Avil, human mercenary veteran commander of the trade guards. And his mercenary company, what do we call them again? The Silver Hands, guarding the trade caravan. So that's good for NPCs. So we have monsters, we have treasure. I don't need session notes because I'm going to be taking that during the game. All right, so we are good. So now I'm going to print to PDF, export to PDF, and we will, I bet you I can actually scale this out a bit bigger, but let's find out. And that looks really good. So we're going to hit print, and we print it. One thing in my Obsidian article is about how to customize the print output. The nice thing about doing the print output is you get a really good looking one-page thing that looks like this for the notes, which I can print out, and it's one sheet, and I throw it in my notes, and off I go. So very cool. If you want to learn more about how to set that up, you can find it in the article about using Obsidian. But it's actually, for those, some of you may remember I had a whole like crazy thing where I was using Pandoc and Automator and other scripts. I found a much easier way where you can customize a style for Obsidian for the output for printing, specifically for printing. And it makes it print really nicely and easily. This is the wrong notes. That's not even the right one. But that's what it looks like anyway. I don't know where the other ones went. Maybe because it just opened them and I just immediately printed, so it didn't save them. No, here it is. So this is the notes for today's game. Very straightforward. Friends, I want to thank all of you for hanging out with me today while I prepared my game. If you enjoyed this show and you want more stuff like this, the best way to get it is to subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. Subscribers get a free weekly newsletter sent to your inbox every week, along with a free PDF generator or free PDF adventure generator. It's absolutely free to sign up. And it's the best way to keep track of all of the stuff that I'm doing. You'll find other tips and links to other work that I have done elsewhere. You can also support me directly on Patreon. Patrons of Sly Flourish get access to the awesome Lazy DM community over on Discord. They help me put on shows like this, and they get access to a whole bunch of tips, tricks, tools, adventures, and other things to help you run your games. And you can pick up any of my books, including Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, The Lazy DM's Companion, Workbook, Forge of Foes, and others at the Sly Flourish bookstore. Links to that are in the show notes. Thank you so much. Have a great day and get out there and play an RPG.